Hello, and welcome to Required Reading, the podcast that revisits the most impactful books from our childhood. I'm your host, Erin Bowles. I am a writer, actor, and comedian. And if you'd like to support the podcast, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/required reading. Our guest today is Carter Hambley. He is a comedian, writer, and producer who just finished shooting Happy Gilmore 2. Hello.
Hey Aaron, how's it going?
Good. I am so excited. Today's book is from 1986 by Brian Jacques, Redwall, about a tiny mouse warrior.
Redwall. Is that how you say it, Jake's?
I know, I was so disappointed, but I did look it up, and it's
Devastating
not
for me. This
Jacques.
this is
Yeah.
horrible for me. I've been saying Jacques plural, which I don't think is
Mhm.
right in any country. But no, wait.
Yeah.
So this was your first time reading this one?
Yeah, so I wanted to ask if you had any familiarity with the cartoon show, because I had familiarity with that.
No, I've never seen this.
There was a show on PBS that up until like Sunday, when I was talking to a friend, thought that no one had ever seen it. And she had seen it. And I was like, thank God I did not, imagine this. But I think the whole show is available on YouTube. And it seems to follow this pretty closely beat for beat, which is
Oh,
interesting.
that's sick. I need to watch that. I heard that they were going to do a like the people who did Over the Garden Wall were working on doing this
Mm,
for Netflix, but I think that fell through or is in development hell or something. But no, I mean it's
yeah.
such a like, easy one to adapt. You think it would be so good in like
Yeah.
50-minute episode format.
Absolutely. And this wasn't in the I saw this on Wikipedia because I didn't see it on YouTube, and it sounds vaguely familiar that the show was like bookended by interviews with Jakes, like answering questions from viewers, which sounds very PBS. I was a
Yeah,
big
I'm sure the
PBS
kids
kid.
loved when the Jolly Frenchman sat in front of the television and
Exactly.
questions. Can I say, did you have a lot of questions about this book when you finished
No,
this book? Do you feel like you needed to
no,
write a letter to him?
no.
Okay, so this was your first time reading Redwall.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think the first time I read Redwall was probably elementary school. I grew up in Kansas, and so I went to a very small elementary school where there were like 10 kids per class. So there were
Wow. Yeah.
like 90 kids in the whole school. And so like very tiny
Mhm.
library. I remember seeing this cover and being like, well, I gotta read that because I've read everything else. That was a lot of Hank the Cowdog. And then this. And I remember reading this one and thinking I was like, wow, this is like the hardest book ever. Like I thought it was like Lord of the Rings. I remember thinking that for years until like maybe a year ago, I was in a Barnes and Noble and I saw Redwall and I was like with a friend and I was like, man, it's crazy because like this book is not for kids at all. And then I picked it up and I opened to page one and I was like, oh, this is so clearly for children. But it's I love the way he writes is so funny.
Yeah, it's really vivid. I know that I did a tiny bit of research going into it, and I know when he first sent it to a publisher, I think they were like, this is way too long, that we cannot do this length. But I wanted to talk a little bit about 86 and Jake's. 1986, this is the UK and France announced that they're going to build the channel. Chernobyl disaster. It's the year of Top Gun, Phantom of the
Mhm.
Opera, Challenger explodes on live television,
Mhm.
and the band Sweet Children was formed, which is now Green Day.
Oh, wow. That's so I assume he wrote this over a long time, right? I don't know. This feels like
Yeah.
it feels like a thing that a guy had in his notebook for a long time. I don't know if that's me projecting or
The original Redwall manuscript was 800 pages handwritten.
like a manifesto. That
I
is
know.
that's so crazy because like the plot of this book is not what you come to this book for. I could tell you the plot of this
Mm-mm.
book in about 3 sentences. It's very simple. And 90% of the main plot points, I don't know if you agree, happen in the last 30 pages.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
truly is like they achieve everything in the last 30 pages. In the middle is him describing food mainly.
Yes. For those who don't know this book, Redwall is about a bunch of mice who live in an abbey called Redwall. And little Matthias, our hero, is obsessed with the ancient Martin the Warrior who's on this tapestry. And there's a rat and some bad guys who want to take over. And Matthias and his family and his friends at the abbey say no.
And they
And
say
that's kind
no.
of it.
And they say no. and it's a lot of animals, and it's kind of like it's funny because in like Lord of the Rings you have like orcs are bad, and this like the good ones and the bad ones don't really line up with what you would think from an animal. Like there's a
Mhm.
snake who's bad, but like badgers can be good or badgers can be bad. Like it doesn't really track. It's like rats are bad, mice are good, which I guess makes sense. But
Mhm.
it's just a lot of weird woodland creatures that all have different alliances. They all live, yes, in an abbey, and they're all like seemingly very religious, but also they have no religion. Am I wrong, or do they never mention religion?
No, you're right. And Redwall is a series. It's like a 22 book series.
I
Um,
saw that the last one he wrote was 2011.
yeah, yeah. This is the copy that I've had since I was a kid that I've just never read and finally did. And I had a copy of the second book and a copy of another book. So I looked at the second book just be like, okay, does this pick up? You know, they set up that he has a kid and things like that. It's like centuries before. They just completely, I think it's of
Yeah, I
Martin the
remember reading a
Warrior.
few. Yeah, because there's the ones that
Yeah.
take place like 300 years before, and then there's ones that take place like 100 years after, and it's like
Yeah.
nothing really changes because it's the woods. Society's not different. They all still live in like a little church. But
It
yeah.
seems like someone on Wikipedia tried to be like, okay, what time in the human world does this take place? And it seems like Jakes wrote this first book and was like, don't ask about humans. Just we're
Yeah,
not answering that question. That doesn't
hard
exist here.
admits. Because they don't really, well, they don't have cars. So that probably helps.
No,
There's
they
no
have
cars.
wheels. Yeah.
They have wheels, they have big wheels, they have small wheels. I think that's literally it. They have pots and pans. That's what's getting mentioned a lot. Is like copper pots. That seems to
Yes.
be the main thing. This book opens with a jubilee. And it's just like I have my copy. Like, are you familiar with there's a Twitter like bot account that just tweets out the excerpts of just the
No.
food mentions from these books? It's a very fun follow, but like the language, like I remember in the first one, he's just describing like stuff that would not sound appetizing to a child, like at all. But I remember
Mm-mm.
being like, this sounds great. I never had shrimp, but I remember like he's describing tender freshwater shrimp garnished with cream and rose leaves. And you're like, as a child, that is not that's not what you want to eat. But I remember being like, that sounds awesome. And I'd never had shrimp ever.
I had never had shrimp until maybe sometime in the last 5 years because I grew up not eating meat. But my mother once, it's my favorite thing to say. It's my favorite thing to say. My mother once had the all-you-can-eat shrimp at IHOP and she got deathly ill.
IHOP does that?
They
Wait,
did
what
once.
what form are they in? Are they like I can know
Not pancakes, certainly.
it's like on a plate? That's crazy.
Yeah,
Wait, how many did she have?
she loves shrimp. She
She loves
really,
it.
I
No, I
mean,
get it. That's a deal. That's a deal too. Well, that's so funny. Wait, so shrimp now, pro or con?
pro, very pro. They're delicious. Yeah.
No, I remember
You?
trying with my first time with shrimp was when I was about I think it was like 12 or 13 and I had one and I remember like I was like, I felt it swim and I did not, but I remember like throwing up and my mom was like, "Okay, well, you're not having any more of those. Like those are too expensive for you to be doing that. We live
Well,
in Kansas. This is not readily available." And so I truly did not have shrimp until yeah, maybe a year ago. Was like when I
yeah.
got back. But no, yeah, the way he writes in this book about food is like I can't think of any other books where there's so much attention is paid to what they're eating. It's like how my mom would talk about like Robert Pattinson's hands is how he is describing food in this. Very much what Brian Jacques is
Yeah.
doing.
They're always talking about what Cornflower, the girl mouse, is bringing to everyone on the rounds from the kitchen
Yeah.
when they're
Uh,
on, when they're waiting.
Yeah, Cornflower, kind of the real MVP of this book. She's like the love interest of our main character and is always in the kitchen. In the last battle, they're talking about it and they're like, and also Cornflower is making oatmeal. Like, like
Yes.
truly as an aside, we're like, yes, they are storming the gates, but also she's making a lovely flatbread that will be served later this evening.
Which is kind of nice, I think, because there's like no sexism in it. It's like that truly is the most important job in our
No,
community.
no, it is funny where like I think it's like her and then like an old man and they're both like
Mhm.
just both in the kitchen. Yeah, it truly is like It is funny how weirdly progressive these books are in terms of structure of society. It does feel
Yeah.
very much like a weird, like a hippie commune more than anything else. Yeah, they describe them as like father and like they act like monks, but yeah, there's no God, no religion. They're just truly all
Oh.
there to hang out in a church and eat.
Yeah, and it seems like they have this mythical Jesus? I don't know, they have this mythical
Yeah.
Martin the Warrior figure.
Yeah. Who is like historical and very much was real and he's like and he lived
Mhm.
here, which is
Yes,
also weird. It wasn't like he lived somewhere else. He very much like was here. And then they're like,
right.
but nobody has fought since that guy. Yeah, the main character obviously sees this tapestry and is like, I gotta get like him. And I love the main character. I love that he's always tripping. Or he's like always
Over his
falling
big
or like
sandals.
yes, he's wearing sandals. He's always like, yeah, in flip-flops, tripping. And I remember as a kid, I fell a lot. And I remember being like, well, cool. It's cool to see a character who is always eating shit a little bit. And while collecting hazelnuts is always nice to see.
Yes. Very good
But
at fishing. Yeah.
very good at fishing and then incredibly good at fighting with no practice or experience,
Yes.
which I have to respect.
There was a point fairly early on where they're like, "Oh, you're him reincarnated." And there's no questioning. They're just like, "We know this
Yeah.
and we understand this. Let's get you a shield." And then they
No,
start
for
going
sure. It's
scavenger
easier for everyone
hunting.
to
Yeah.
just accept that you're that guy who's born again.
And we know
That's
like nothing else about him. Yeah.
no, he really doesn't have that many. Nobody in this, I will say, has that many character traits in a way that is almost
Mm-mm.
crazy looking back at, except for our villain Clooney, who is just like the most. I like the first appearance is him shoving one of his own guys under a wagon, and then they go like, and his blood goes everywhere, and that's like the end of the chapter.
Yes.
It's just him like shoving his like own buddy under a wagon and dying.
I see why you, as a child, said that this was metal because, like, people do die. There are, like, big fight scenes.
There's a body count
Yeah.
in this book. It's which is kind of
Yes.
crazy.
And a substantial one. Like, only, like, one or two of the good guys die, but they move through, like, every single henchman.
There is a lot of room for advancement in that enemy army because every chapter opens with like, anyways, Cheese Thief has a giant arrow in his chest and we're all gathered around him, which first of all, love that there's a guy named Cheese Thief.
Oh my
I think that's
God.
great, that's not really a naming system in this. It's just that one guy has a name like that.
Yes. There's, like, Rag Ear, Fang, Red Tooth.
And the rest of them just sound vaguely Christian. The rest of them do just sound like a large Mormon family. Chicken Hound, also Chicken Hound.
It was one of the foxes.
Yeah.
Yes. I
Well,
have to
so
say my favorite. Yes, go for
yes,
it.
no. Your favorite name, I have to know.
Oh, well, my favorite character
Oh
is
yes,
this little baby squirrel who never speaks and is always
yes,
sucking on his paw, Silent Sam.
yep. Silent Sam, who in the last chapter,
Yes.
the epilogue is like he talks, right? Don't they say that he
hmm
talks? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Suddenly he like will not shut up.
that's
Yeah.
a big mic drop. As a Silent Sam has spoken. Wait, okay. As a person who's reading this for the first time, I have to know what was the
hmm
pace of this book like for you?
This was so slow. This is the first book where I've had to like skim. It was really bad. I was like, I gotta get through it.
I remember as a child being like, this is such a gripping read. And I think it was because I didn't have a job and I didn't have anything to do and I had nowhere to be. It's funny because in like Lord of the Rings, which feels like the closest parallel for this
Yeah,
in
they
a way,
reference it explicitly in a review on the
yeah,
back of mine. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
exactly. It's very much like the way the fantasy is laid out and everything. But the main thing is that like in Lord of the Rings, a ton of stuff is always happening. And in this
hmm
book, it's a lot of people like first of all, the bad guys are trying to get into the church from like page 10. And so it's just
hmm
climbing ladders almost over and over and being like, well, that did not work. Let's try a different ladder. And so every other chapter,
hmm
it's just them coming back to being like mildly thwarted and then,
Yes.
or walking around in the woods. That was a big thing I noticed on the reread. I'm not gonna lie.
Yes. A good book for children learning siege tactics.
Yes,
Definitely.
yes. very much so where you're like, okay, I guess pour boiling oil on him. Like it's very intense. They're not like
Yes.
childish. They don't just bonk him on the head. It is a lot of like, yeah, intense war games happening and like
Hmm.
trenches. And yeah, and everyone in the church is like really ready for it.
Yes. Even though
They
they have not fought since Martin,
they
they're
have not fought,
ready. They handle it
but they're
well.
and they do seem like they're psyched to be fighting. They're really excited to be fighting, and I get it. To be fighting and be on the justified side probably feels
Oh yeah.
incredible.
It actually makes so much sense that because I looked into Jake's a little bit. I mean, he's born in England in Liverpool in 1939. So it makes sense that his sort of conception of childhood is war and food because food was
Yeah.
probably extremely scarce. And war is sort of the only thing around. But he has this incredible stretch of jobs before he like settles into being a writer. I just have to
Mhm.
list them: merchant
No.
sailor,
Oh,
railway
that's the
fireman.
first one?
Yes. And when I looked on Wikipedia, it was like he left school at 15 to become a merchant sailor, which was normal. Which was normal.
Where is a 15-year-old? What is a 15-year-old going to do on a boat?
It would
Okay.
have been 1955 for England, so it's I don't know something colonial. I don't
He's
know.
gonna fall and hit his head like Barry Keoghan in Dunkirk. That's the only job for a 15-year-old on a boat is to get a concussion and die. Okay, merchant sailor.
Yeah.
What
Railway fireman,
else? Again, not a job I want a 16-year-old coming to help me out if a train is on fire. Okay.
longshoreman, which frankly, I don't know what that is.
I feel like that's a boat thing too. That also feels
Yeah.
like
Long distance truck driver, bus
okay.
driver,
Okay.
postmaster, stand up entertainer,
He did stand up?
and the last one, which pulls into his writing career,
Uh-huh.
milkman.
Wow, I like that he did one entertainment-based job, and after 7 jobs on a boat or dealing with fire, he's like, you know what? I got to hit the club circuit. I got to go to the Funny Bone in Cincinnati and describe food on stage before Andrew Dice Clay comes out and obliterates me. That is so. And then Milkman's
Yes.
in England,
Yes.
presumably.
So he's going on his rounds. He passes the Royal Wavertree School for the Blind and befriends all of these children. So he's volunteering to read to them, and he's like, this shit sucks. There's so much, quote, angst in them. So he starts writing stories, and because they're visually impaired, he writes them with like extremely descriptive style and emphasizing sounds and smells and tastes. And those stories that he writes for them grow into 800-page handwritten manuscript for Redwall.
That's so funny because that is like adorable and it's like amazing. And it's like
Yeah.
it's so cool that you're making a story for these people who are like don't have a sense and you're trying to make up for it with your flowery language. But it is weird to inadvertently be like, and listen, because you are blind, I've written for you one of the most boring books of all time. It's also like, hey, they're kids too. I bet they would love to just like have some action happen and probably like I can't imagine they're on the edge of their seat for the tender shrimp portion of the book.
Need to know their reviews of it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would love to
because
know. And also,
there's
like, I want to know
there's
what the teachers
mhm.
thought of the milkman bending down on a stoop and telling these children how good rosemary, mint, and thyme are together mixed into a tea. I would be like, okay, man, you gotta go. We gotta teach them everything. We gotta
Yeah. It's the early 80s. Who knows? You know?
the 80s in England, which this man was dressed crazy. There's
And a
no way.
milkman.
There's no way that this milkman in the 80s, who was a longshoreman, a long haul bus driver, or long haul trucker, and then, yeah, no, he's wearing the worst hat of all time, for sure.
His
That's so
Wikipedia picture, you can't tell if he's like laughing or crying. I'll send it to
cool.
you.
I love that. I've like kind of avoided finding out what this man looks like. Okay. Oh man, he looks like he would kill you with a knife. This is
Yes, there is
is
something like Batista about him. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's like for those playing along at home, he is bald, he has a white goatee and like is constantly kind of having a little beret sort of situation or like a flat brim hat that is straight down over his eyes and
Mhm.
uh wait, I haven't seen the specific what's the specific photo you're sending
Oh,
me?
on his Wikipedia.
Oh, on his Wikipedia.
Um,
Oh, let me look.
yeah.
Wikipedia.
Because the Wikipedia pictures are always terrible. They're always doing people dirty.
Oh, this
Um,
one is no, this one is like this is crazy. This feels like he's having a colonoscopy and someone burst the door down, took a photo and uploaded it to the internet. Is like I can't he looks like what's his Brian Cox from Succession is very much
yes,
what he looks like
exactly.
in this. Okay, so he did die in 2011. I'm
Mhm.
just finding this out. I'm crying. I
Mm.
start sobbing condolences. He meant so much to me. No, but I mean, rest in peace. Obviously, love to his family, but he didn't. Did he write any? I'm trying to figure out if he wrote anything other than Redwall. It says he completed two collections of short stories. One is called "The Ribbajack and Other Curious Yarns."
Yeah, I'm seeing The Castaways of the Flying Dutchman series and
I,
Seven Strange and Ghostly Tales.
I do love that he has the worst website of all time.
Oh, of course he
It looks
does.
like a Flash game, like that. It also it's like when the background of a website used to look like parchment paper. That's what it looks like. It looks like you spilled tea all over this website. I think it's so cool that the Redwall website has like home about Brian, shop, and then obituaries. I think
Yes.
I think it's always nice when you're as a children's author you have an obituaries section.
And I have to find out, is it for Brian or for... Oh, it's
Now
for Brian. It's not for
definitely one of
characters.
them is for Brian, but then
Yeah.
another one is for Andy. Who I think is just a child who loved Redwall, but the
Oh.
rest of which is very sweet. I do forget these books, like you meet a person who loves these books and they are obsessed with
Mhm.
these books. They truly
Yes.
will go off about them. And I think it's because they haven't reread them. Like me.
Yeah.
I will say largely of like I got it. I was so psyched to reread this one and I started into it and I was like, awesome, love it, just how I remember. And then yeah, truly for almost and this is yeah, this book is my copy is at the font size and everything, 351 pages. That's not a small book, especially for a child, or for anyone now even. Because I opened like this book, I didn't know where my copy was, so I was like, oh, I'll order another one. It arrived and it's thick. And I was like, okay, cool. But the font is probably huge. And then I opened it up and it is, if anything, smaller than average.
Mine is an inch thick, which I think is maybe why I never read it as a kid, because it was so thick and daunting. And even though I was a very academic child, I had a very small attention span, which is valid.
I just want to stop the pod to say that is valid. And wait, what's your relationship with like fantasy books in general, though, Aaron?
Yeah.
Do you like a fantasy or you?
Yes. So my foundational, most core of core texts is Wizard of Oz. So yes,
Okay.
fantasy good. But there are, throughout the podcast, there have been a lot of fantasy books about small mice,
Hmm.
surprisingly. And there are just better ones. Like I was really into the
Think of
Tale of
another one.
Despero.
Oh, Tale
Tale
of
of
Despero. Yes, that's a classic.
Yes. I think specific to Redwall, there was a graphic novel series called Mouse Guard that I
Oh yeah,
think
man.
was what I wanted Redwall to be. And
Yeah,
I think that's also just like the virtue of being a graphic novel
for
and the format
sure.
is different. We just love mice for
Yeah, I mean,
children.
you want to root for a mouse. A mouse winning
Hmm.
is always good, and a rat winning is always bad. I mean, did you ever read Geronimo
Yes.
Stilton?
Yes. I
Yes.
collected them more than I read them, but I had so many. Yeah.
To be fair, there's like 7 words in each book. They're not really
Hmm.
like complicated books because the main thing I remember about those is that they played with font. As it's a lot of like
Yes.
if he's talking about Swiss cheese, you better be damn sure that that font looks like Swiss cheese. And I think almost every book should do that. I think
Yes.
Yeah, I think that smutty books should have letters that are gooey and dripping. That's what I think.
Ooh.
And I think it
Mm.
benefits from that. Or not.
Yes.
Actually, I take it back. I take it back. I think books are good the way they are.
I mean, publishers, we have an idea for you.
Guys, pre-wedded, these books come soaking.
Disgusting.
No, no. Do you take good care of your books? That is a genuine question I wanted to ask you today. Are you one that bend the pages just in terms of
Yeah.
loving a book?
I am a huge fan of used books. So I like when a physical book carries a story in addition to the story that it tells, right? I love to underline, I love to highlight, I love to put some tabs in there. I love it. I love to just like look back and say, what did I take as important from this? What about you?
Yeah, I love to do that. I love to mark up a book is great. I used to be so like as a child, I would never like dog ear a book. I wanted to
Mhm.
keep every book like in pristine condition. And then I feel like as I get older, I'm like, oh no, it's cooler the more you're able to like interact with a book as much as you can. Were
Mhm.
you underlining a lot in this book specifically?
No,
I was gonna
none
say,
at all.
I just saw a glimpse of your book and I'm like, not seeing a lot of tabs or highlights on this.
No,
Um,
no, none at all.
It does introduce about 500 identical characters one by one. And that,
I
like,
mean, there's
over
some
time,
fun ones,
there's
but
some great
yeah.
ones. And there are some
Mhm.
great ones. Like, I do want to give him credit. Like, whenever there's the Sparrow is fun. Yeah, it does very much feel like he can't imagine meeting a person who isn't either religious evil or in the army. Those are like the only three
Well,
types of people in this book.
and maybe in Liverpool in the what 50s, 40s, maybe
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, where were the Beatles at this time? He probably hadn't met them yet.
oh, the first Beatles album. I don't know how to type apparently.
I will say,
1963.
okay. Well, this book would be way better as a Beatles song. And
Oh,
I think they would love to have John Lennon should be singing about Cheese Thief. Just for one track, get it out of the system. But it is funny to finish this 300. I can't even imagine what the 800-page manuscript was. 'Cause, like, well, I can't even imagine. It must have just been adjectives.
yes. I flipped it open to a random page, and the first thing my eye saw was the word driblets.
I like that. And there's a lot of verbs I don't know. Like they keep saying poleaxing, and they say
Yes.
that like four times, and I'm like, I guess that just means stabbing a guy. But it is like it is not. It's clearly only for children, but also actively hostile to everything a child loves and holds dear. Which I hate to be like showing my hand on what I think of this book. I truly still love all the things I remembered loving about the
Yeah.
it's just from a sheer structural perspective, you're like, I don't know if this guy has like books have been described to him, but I don't think anyone made him sit down and start to finish read a book or read his book.
I know he was very like not anti-technology, but he was an old man who was like, let me keep my typewriter forever and ever and ever, was
Mm.
that sort of type. He also, I just
Yeah.
have to point this out. So his first name is James Brian Jacques. His
Okay.
father and his younger brother are also all named James.
There were two Jameses, and his dad was also named James.
Yeah, they have three children, and it's Anthony, James, and James.
This really does track for me because when you read this book, you are like, this is written by a man who hugs his mother for a really long time, like every day,
Hmm.
like every single day. Like you watch and you go like, that's a little much. And he seems like full of love in a way that is scary almost. And he does it is this is a book about like good and evil, but in such a way where there's almost no themes or takeaways. It's just
No.
good guys are good and bad guys are bad. Like I was trying to think today, I'm like, what is this book about? And I did you have anything?
No. I
No.
think like it's really telling when your villain's motto, the thing he repeats the most when going into battle is kill, kill, kill. You're sort of like, that's it, isn't it? We
I'm
got
not gonna
it.
lie, that would scare the hell out of me though.
I
If,
know.
if a guy was about to fight me and he yelled kill, 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 I would be scared. I would be so scared. Like yesterday, I'm in New York right now, and we went to the Met, and they have Henry VIII's armor,
Mm,
and Henry VIII, a big fellow, and I cannot articulate how scary it is to see a big like a chunky knight is like so much more terrifying than just a normal knight. It is like I was looking at the thin knights, and I'm like, yeah, that would
yeah,
suck to fight one of those guys. But man, the idea of just like a barrel figured knight coming at you,
yeah,
scarier than anything else. And I do think this book does capture that of like it would
yeah.
suck to fight a fox.
Yes. Or Constance the Badger. She's always described very lovingly, but it is like, do not
Yes.
come within a foot of this woman if you want to test her. Like, this
Yes.
is not a safe person to be around if you're
Exactly.
gonna do
Yes.
mischief. And I was
Yeah.
relieved she lived. Yeah, that she was never threatened. I would have been affected if she died.
Many of the characters in this book never threatened even remotely. A
Never.
lot of it is truly just an Abbot Mortimer who is like the sweetest
Hmm.
character in this book is just like the loving patriarch of the Abbey and like believes so much in the main character. And then he dies by poison.
Clooney is using his tail as a whip, like little Indiana Jones,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think has a poison barb on it that I mean it's tricky because I think the tail gets cut like halfway through the battle. And then the
Yeah.
battle ends and we come back and he is still dying. But I guess that's how poison works.
He's still dying on the floor, and like I love the part where he's dying because he gets so much done while he's
Yeah,
laying there
so
dying.
much.
He truly, everyone gathers around him, and he requests like 10 separate things. Like one of them being like, he's like, okay, you're gonna replace me. He's like, okay, you don't get to be part of the Brotherhood, and then everyone gasps, and he goes, because you are the
Yes.
knight that protects us, kind of a, which is to be dying
Hmm.
of poison and to do a like, gotcha, at the
Yeah.
end
Well,
is kind of crazy because you could have just maybe you died.
you might not have had the time. You
Might
might
not have
not
had
have
the
said the
time.
punchline.
Also, you two have to get married,
Yes.
Matthias and Cornflower.
A warrior needs a good wife.
Behind every warrior is an even stronger woman.
And he also gives them a house. He says the old gatehouse will be extended into a proper home. It belongs to you both. Guard our threshold wisely and well. He's really, like Jakes, the author, really doing some scene painting. I see the
Hmm.
most beautiful summer morning of my life. The sun shines warmly upon us. Nature is ready to yield her bounty again in plenty this autumn.
I don't know. Like, it's nice of him to give them the house, but I do feel
Hmm.
like they spent the entire book being like, it is so cool to live in this abbey. And then to be like, and your reward is you do not get to live in this abbey, you get to live in a shed that
Over
is outside
there.
and protect the awesome abbey. I assume you can come and go as you please, but I do like that the epilogue immediately goes 1 year later. They have an adorable
Yes.
chunky son and he loves to pick up the sword at 1 year old. And then
Yes. And I hate the sword's name.
he names it while he's dying. Also,
Yes.
he
Rat
goes,
death.
yeah, while he's dying, he goes, oh, and by the way, your sword shall be known far and wide as Rat Death. And I was like, I don't think the dying guy should get to name the
No.
sword.
Mm-mm.
That is weird because, like, I mean, again, Lord of the Rings, he names it Sting, which is a way cooler name for a sword than Rat Death.
But
Um,
frankly, I hate that. A detail from Lord of the I not having read the books, only having seen the movies many, many times. I do hate that the sword is named Sting.
if you had a sword, what would you name it, Aaron?
Oh. So I think I would give it a human name. But I think it would
Mm.
be, I don't, something, just because it's in this book, Constance is calling to me. I don't
Oh,
know.
but that's like an ethereal sword. Like that is like that's a
Hmm.
honestly a lightsaber name. Constance, a lightsaber named Constance. That yeah, that's
Hmm.
pretty good.
What
Maybe
would you
maybe
name a sword?
mud flap. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
but I think that's just what I'd name a dog. I think I would like I'd have a sword named Cooper or something. And I
Yeah.
don't think good. I think maybe fundamentally what we're finding out is that swords shouldn't have names. And maybe we
I
just
mean, it's really hard to name a sword better than Excalibur.
they kind of hit a home run with Excalibur. Do people name their bats in baseball? You don't hear of a lot of people like naming their tools like that, I feel like. Excalibur, the only famous sword I can even think of. But he does this whole book is like you have to find the back half of this book is like you have to find this sword.
Yes.
You need to find this sword, it'd be awful. And then he gets to the place and they keep talking about how it's guarded by this snake. And he
Hmm.
gets like within 3 pages, he finds the sword and kills the snake within truly 2.5 pages. It really moves quickly.
Yeah.
It wastes no time at the end of it.
Yeah. We spend the whole book first trying to find the shield and then the scabbard and then the sword. And there's a lot of riddles and scavenger hunts, which I think I would
Yes.
have enjoyed more when I was young. Speaking of
Yeah.
PBS, I loved the show Fetch with Rough Ruffman,
That's
which
with
was
Rough
all
Ruffman. Now that's television. Yeah, because as a kid you love a riddle, but then like you grow up and you read the Da Vinci Code and you're like, oh, okay, I guess that's what a grown-up riddle is involves history or something, and
hmm
like an albino guy with a chastity belt on. Like that's what you need for an adult riddle to be interesting. And then yeah, no, they're very simple. Yeah, it solves it almost immediately. And
hmm
yeah, I don't know. I feel bad being like, man, this book for kids is really boring to me as an adult, that is like I heard that about 5 minutes ago. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe just go the book for kids. Maybe should just be for kids who love it.
hmm
But
It's
I think my niece is 11 now, and we
hmm
like and I give her like recommendations and I'll buy her books and stuff like that. I don't think I'd give her this book because like I'm just imagining a child being like, "Oof, my uncle really it meant a lot to him that I read this, so I guess I'm gonna really fight uphill on it."
What
Yeah.
books have you given her? Yeah, that like you have felt good about.
Oh, that's Phantom Toll Booth. Phantom Toll.
Oh, yeah, I'm waiting for
Yeah,
someone to do that on this.
I
Yeah.
love that book. I should have done
Mhm.
that book because that book
You
is
can come
awesome.
back and do it.
That book is so funny. That book is so like it's so funny and clever, and I think it's like so imaginative and truly has its own like little world. And like that I think
Hmm.
is amazing. And like yeah, Redwall is so funny because like you said, it's like a book where you go, I think there's 10 different versions of this that are better that you could name off of the top of your head. But that said, it is amazing that he wrote like 20 and I don't know how much you
Yeah,
know about them. I've read a lot of them. They all have the
I
exact same.
don't. Oh
They
no.
all basically have the exact same plot of like, we need a warrior. And then they find the warrior and then he wins the fight. Like that is exactly what the prequel about him is, about
Oh.
Martin is. And then some of them, the same thing happens, but on a boat. And that's the main difference.
Well,
Um,
I do love a boat,
this book would be
but
better if it had some water in it. This book would also be better, can I say, if it had a gorilla, if it had a monkey.
that's
I would
true.
it would be more interesting. There was like what the most interesting animal in this is what, an owl?
I really liked, I wouldn't have liked him if I knew him personally, but I really liked Basil, the hare, Basil,
Oh,
probably.
yes. Fun guy to
Who
hear stories about, not a guy you want to be in the group project with for sure. Uh,
definitely class clown, but like pulls it off, pulls off a lot of
did
heists.
did pull it off. Did get a shout out in the epilogue. The epilogue, by the way, is 1 page long, and they list every single name almost that was in this book. He really leaves no stone unturned, and it's just like, by the way, all of them are friends. They're all eating, and
Yes.
he even describes food in the epilogue. In the like 1 page epilogue, he talks about the
Yeah,
type
because
that
they're
they
getting ready for another feast. Yeah.
I will say he should have written a cookbook because I would buy his cookbook
Yes.
in a heartbeat. I would tell you
Someone
what,
must have made that.
that has to
It
exist,
does
right?
exist. It does
Okay. I was
exist.
gonna say,
It does
otherwise we
exist.
should make a quick $100 and write that book.
And it's illustrated. Very
Oh,
cute.
this book would also benefit from pictures. I say sounding like the dumbest guy
Hmm.
in the world, but a picture would have saved my life in this book.
Does yours have little tiny images at the beginning of each
Yes.
chapter?
And I love
Hmm.
those. Okay, I will say the Redwall cookbook looks incredible. This
Yeah.
cover is gorgeous.
It reminds me of like Stregonona.
I can't imagine making
Mm.
any of these for anyone I love. Like I like going like doing like date night and being like, babe, do you want to come over while I make Mole's favorite deeper and ever turnip and tater beetroot pie? Is not, I don't know, that would be romantic.
Outside and inside cobbler riddle?
It's
What
a
does that mean?
cobbler riddle?
Cobbler riddle? I'm looking at
What?
it on. Amazon.
I love to be confused by food. I love to be like, I have no idea what's happening. I'm scared. I would have loved if Brian Jacques was like had a like a cooking show or whatever,
Oh
or
my
like if he
God.
traveled around and everyone fed the like bald man with the goatee and he just
Yeah.
talked. I would love an Anthony Bourdain style show with this old
Yes.
British long haul trucker. Would have been
Yes.
enthralling. But then he found out about mice, and that really set him on a path. Did he like mice? Is there any reference of that, of love for animals?
Something that Wikipedia mentioned was The Wind in the Willows, which is a novel about like a mole and a rat and a badger and Mr. Toad. He liked Sir Thomas Malory, who wrote it's Le Morte d'Arthur, which I hate to say French words because that makes me sound like an asshole. But yeah,
Oh.
he liked that and like Daniel Defoe and Arthur Conan Doyle, which I mean maybe it's just it sounds really stuffy.
But yeah, but it is funny because Arthur Conan Doyle, that guy can write a riddle. So it is kind of beautiful to be like, I'm a long haul trucker. I like these four guys. I'm gonna combine them with my love of food and make a book that is it's gonna be great if you're under 10. Or wait, I don't know. What
Yeah.
do you think is the ideal age to read this book?
Oh, I have no
Because like
idea.
you can't give it to like an 8-year-old, I don't
No.
think. But you also, if you give it to a 13-year-old, they will punch you. Like this is so there's maybe like a 3-month span of every person's life where book is ideal to read.
It's a very specific kind of child. Yeah. But
Yeah.
here's a little anecdote I wanted to mention, because it happens every once in a while to different children who become writers. At age 10, assigned to write an animal story, he wrote about a bird that cleaned a crocodile's teeth. His teacher could not believe that a 10-year-old wrote it and caned him for refusing to admit copying the story.
He got whooped?
He got whooped
Wow.
for it.
For being such a precocious young boy. I don't know about you, Aaron. I've heard a lot of stories about like a bird cleaning a crocodile's teeth and then like, oh, the crocodile's gonna eat him, but then he doesn't. Like I feel
Mhm.
like I could 1,000% believe that a 10-year-old boy wrote that.
Yeah. I wrote
Um,
a story like that when I was maybe 6 and it got in the little silly school writing
oh,
publication. And
did
I
anyone
thought I was a genius, you know?
did anyone beat your ass for it?
No, but I will
No.
say my mom is from this really small town in Kentucky and her dad was like the historian for the town. So every time she would write a history paper, they would like automatically fail her, being like, your dad wrote this. And she's like, no, I independently also really like history.
No. Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah.
Oh, that stinks. That's so funny.
Exactly.
It's also so funny to just be like a 10-year-old boy would never write about two animals being friends. It's
Two
so
unlikely animals being friends?
yeah, like
Never.
if he was writing Pride and Prejudice and was just like, oh, this love between two
Yeah.
houses is very complicated and neither of them will give, then I'd understand a spank. Now thinking about this, I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense of like him getting caned for writing about animals and then made him like spurnfully be like, I'm gonna show her by writing about animals so much that actually everyone will want me to stop writing about animals. I assume that his children must have resented him a little bit of like if
Yeah.
it's that thing of I feel like if your dad writes a children's book, he's probably really gonna want to read that book to you.
Yes. Well, he has two children. I looked this up. So his son, Mark, is a carpenter and bricklayer, and his other son is a contemporary artist and muralist. And that
Okay.
sounds about right.
Sounds like very, very normal, well-adjusted
Yeah.
occupation.
Jake's father was a truck driver. They're all very, very like working class, blue collar,
Okay,
Liverpool.
cool. That is so interesting because I feel like it is almost this book is so like hoity-toity fancy that it is somebody trying to just be like, oh, I've always longed for
Yeah.
being in high society, and so I am going to write about a bunch of people having afternoon tea. Meanwhile, I'm like hauling 3 tons of imitation crab across England.
Yeah. There's one other thing about the publication. He is an artist in residence at this theater for a while, and he becomes friends with this English teacher. and co-founder of the theater. So he gives the friend the manuscript, and the friend sends it to a publisher and says, quote, "This is the finest children's tale I've ever read, and you'd be foolish not to publish it." And then the publisher said, "Come in. Here's a contract for this and 5 more books from that 800-page handwritten manuscript."
That is, wow. Five more?
5 more.
Five more. And did it say how much he got paid?
I'm not seeing it now.
Yeah, I feel like it's like maybe they gave him 20 bucks and they were like, this will keep him busy.
This will keep my friend who I read this for as a favor.
800 pages of handwriting. I assume that the long haul trucker probably doesn't have the best handwriting. Maybe that's me and my assumptions about long haul
Mm.
trucking, and longshoremanship. But I would be like, I don't know, type it up. If you don't want me to read 800 pages, maybe we type it up. It feels like bare minimum.
That would not fly in today's publishing world. It feels like one of those things where, like when I was in film school, one of our professors was, prepping us. We were about to graduate, and he's like, "You know what? Just go into Paramount and just sit down at a desk and start doing work. And one day they'll pay you for it. Don't even ask for a job. Just show up and do it." And we had to be like, "No, that doesn't work." And he was like, "That's how I did in the 50s." We're like, yeah, that was the 50s. That does not work
Start
anymore.
doing work. But I'm even like, at what work can you do at a desk that you are not talking to anybody about is like other than truly just like typing keys on a keyboard.
We had like student mentors who had like recently graduated, and so there was one who was happened to be in town like that day or that week, and so we pulled her aside and we're like, "This is what he just told us to do. What do you think?" And she said, "They will arrest you."
And also, you'd have to bring your own desk. They don't just have a ton of empty desks laying around.
No.
That's my only issue with that, is that you should also do that, and also you should bring your own desk. Yeah, and a hat, and a fun hat, so everyone knows that you're not afraid to stand out from the crowd. That's so, no, it is funny that I do love every story that's just like, and I slid my script under like Louis B. Mayer's door, and then they made it. Okay, so your Rosetta Stone for fantasy being Wizard of Oz. I have to
Mhm.
ask, wicked big for you right now?
I posted a couple of videos about this. I like will cut people out of my life if they say negative things about it. I think it's spectacular. I'm a huge fan of the L. Frank Baum books, who's the original author. Wicked is
Yeah.
based on a 4-part series, which I love. Very different from the musical, all very understandable. I wept beginning to end, and it was like, I get to go back to Oz, and I didn't think I ever would get to, you know?
Mhm.
It was
No, it
incredible.
was great. It was so much fun. Wait, when's the second? The second one comes out, what, in a year?
Yeah, like next Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Amazing. No, those books are so good. The like the L. Frank Baum ones. I've never read the
Mhm.
Wicked series, which I assume,
Yeah.
having read what happens in book one, I have no
Yeah.
conceivable notion of what could possibly happen in 3 books after that.
Yeah. So book 2 is about her son. She has a
Uh-huh.
son with Fiyero. Book 3 is about the Cowardly Lion. And then book 4 is about her granddaughter, the son's daughter.
Okay. So the Cowardly Lion one is just an outlier.
Not really. Like there's some tangential. So like her son has a half sister that ends up marrying the Cowardly Lion, but they're in an asexual marriage because of some trauma that happened to her when she was held captive. But they like these are dark books and they're really
Mhm.
complicated. And the Cowardly Lion in those books has a name and it's Burr, as in cold.
I love that though. These are very dark books about the trauma, and because of that, obviously their relationship does not is not going to have physical intimacy at this
Yeah.
moment. And then be like, by the way, his name's Burr because he's
Because
he's
he's
cold,
chilly.
like he's
He's,
cold.
he's yeah, he's shivering because he's scared. Yeah, the third book kind of like goes back to because he makes an appearance in the Wicked film to that and kind of catches up. Those books are wild. I love that author. I love Gregory Maguire. There's some bad stuff in it. Like the whole thing is like using animals as an allegory for people of color.
Yeah,
Pretty
yeah, yeah.
heavy-handed, but his heart's in a good place.
No, I have to read those because the movie was great. I
Yeah.
love the L. Frank Baum books. There's also a really
Mhm.
great, speaking of graphic novels, there's a really great graphic novel adaptation of Wizard of Oz, illustrated by Scotty Young. That's one of the ones
Oh,
that
nice.
made my niece, and that one's like amazing if you have any young people that want a book in your life. That one's so good. And
Yeah, I want to
also
look
in
at it.
Redwall, and please give Redwall to everyone you know, and the next 20 books. I really
Ooh.
do. Ultimately, I do love this book in that it exists, and it's also just
Yeah.
such a fascinating example of like what not to do with a book, and that an editor should tell a guy no. Because
Yeah.
if this book was 150 pages, it would
Oh my
rip.
God. I don't think like being a book editor is a college major anywhere, probably, but this would be the assignment. Would just be like, dude, come back with a
Yes,
third of this
yes,
and
exactly.
I'll be happy. Yeah, because I do like, I love these characters and I love the world. I like that there is a gorilla shrew force out there
Yeah,
that's barely explained.
yeah, that you're just like, oh, okay, of course, for sure.
Got it. Because you're right, at that point, it's like, well, we do only have 30 pages left, so I guess. And is there a cat that's vegetarian
I
who has a feud?
I do love the vibe of this book. It is
Hmm.
like there's just like so much lacking in it. And I will say, guys, if you're going to read this book, don't do any of the audiobooks. Because
Oh.
at first I thought I was going to, I'm not an audiobook guy, but for this one I was like, oh, maybe
Hmm.
that'd be fun if I listen to it on audiobook for the reread. And then I listened to the one where that's read by Brian Jacques, and I was like, he was doing some of the most annoying reading
Aw.
ever heard. And he was like, it
Oh,
was so
no.
sweet because he clearly was just, he was taking a big swing with every sentence in a way
Yeah.
that was exhausting. And then there was another one that was read by a very sultry British man. I'm sorry, I do not know his name, but that one also made me almost fall asleep too much while driving because he was just
Heck.
describing nuts and berries. And
Yeah.
ultimately, and it's a thing of like, do you do audiobooks? Have you done the audiobook thing?
Yes, I do a lot of audiobooks, and the Wicked narrator is phenomenal.
Oh,
That's how I
okay.
first listened to those.
Oh,
And he's
cool.
the author does the second book, and he has other strengths that are not narrating audiobooks, but still very good.
Yeah, I don't know. Was there
Well,
anything
that's
else you noticed on reading these that you thought that was like different from what you expected from both the cover and people talking about this book over the years?
one last thing on the audiobooks. His
Oh yeah.
sons are involved because that's I haven't looked into the audiobooks at all, but this says he was highly involved in the audiobooks of his works, I think more than probably just that one, even personally enlisting his sons and others to voice Redwall inhabitants.
Oh, yeah, it was one of those everyone has a different voice ones, and I
Yeah.
can't, sometimes those are too distracting for me, which is a personal thing. I love that he got his family involved. It's always good to give your bricklayer son a voice acting role.
Yeah.
We said this.
Get a SAG card.
Yes,
Yeah, I
exactly.
I was disappointed by it, which is fine and healthy.
And I just want
I'm
to say,
glad
and I just want to say, I'm sorry.
do not be
Oh,
because it's like I'm glad I finally did it. I am gonna give this and the two other books I had in the series away, and it's nice to have a little space. That's
oh, there you
good.
go.
I'm glad that I found the TV show because I can revisit that. And I do
Yeah.
remember watching that and like eating Pop Tarts for breakfast on the floor of
Oh,
my parents' bedroom. Yeah, when I was little. And it makes me, want to reread Mouse Guard because I only read the first two and I only read that once. And I think it just makes me more, it makes the strengths of Despero stand out a lot stronger because there's like so much that Kate DiCamillo, there's a lot that's about, that's about the beauty
yeah.
of storytelling and incredible ways that we can love each other through our
Mhm.
failures and forgiveness. And this book, it also makes me want to go sit in a sunbeam with some honey on some cheese, and that's really valuable too.
Yes, yes. I love that about this book, and I do want that to be noted. It is like so fascinating to revisit something and being like, "Oh, I had such a clear impression of what this book was," and be like, "It was actually completely different, a very different experience." Have there been a lot of books that you've read for this that you have disliked, or would you say like very few?
There's a handful. And I think the fun thing is that every time there has been a book that I haven't enjoyed, that I've come on and like by the end of the recording found something really beautiful in it and really redeeming in it. And so that's still true. Like this was still fun and it's still like a
Yeah.
world that I'm happy exists. I'm just gonna maybe like I would love a graphic novel. I would love the TV show. I would love,
Yeah.
Netflix might be, like you said, doing a movie. Would love that. Yeah, I
Uh,
want like big paintings of it,
yes,
but
it
I don't
does
need to
feel like
read it.
book is not the ideal format. It almost feels like
Exactly.
a poem. I would love a poem, a cookbook. I mean, cookbook.
Hmm.
I genuinely might buy that cookbook. I mean, a Redwall party. That'd be fun. You have a few people over. There you go. That's a nice dinner. And then something good came of a man's life's work. Besides all of the blind children who loved his stories, which is, that's amazing. That's beautiful. But a dinner for six.
Well, would you consider it required reading?
What I consider, mm, I would say it's required that you pick it up in a bookstore, open it to the first page, and read the first
Mm.
page and go, I get it. Then at every party for the rest of your life, you can say, I read Redwall.
I did. That's all you need to, I mean, let's take an actual look at this first page.
Yeah, is it even a good first page? I can't remember. Yeah, I think it's
Well,
him.
I mean, it does have my favorite character detail about Mateus, which is his giant sandals that he's always tripping
Oh,
over.
yes.
And that's about all that happens. He
Well,
trips, and then Abbott Mortimer shakes his head, and there are smooth hazelnuts,
okay, no,
rolling on
I
the
take this
floor.
back. Keep the book closed, guys. Pick it up, keep the book closed. Just kind of hold it in your hands, palm it around a little bit, smell
Mm,
it. I would say it's required. Yeah, follow the Twitter account that tweets the Redwall feasts descriptions. That is fun. That's a fun way to break up your feed. But other than that, I think you're good. Because I mean, how
yeah.
many hours would you say this took you to read?
Oh, I don't know. I try to read every book for this podcast in 4 days just because of my schedule. And I got to the point where I was just reading the first line of every paragraph for about at least half of it.
No, I will say I definitely got to a point where I was like, and I think I get it. I think I got
Yeah.
this. And I say as a guy who does not do that a lot, I
Yeah,
am like,
never.
no, it's true. It is just like that. And folks, if there's
Yeah.
anyone listening who loves Redwall, because I think if I heard somebody saying
Hmm.
what I'm saying right now before I reread it, I think I would be a little upset, and I'd be like, no, it's like a magical book. It's really, I think they're beautiful.
Hmm.
I think you're wrong. I would beg you to reread it.
Yeah.
I do implore you, reread it. But no, it's
Yeah.
I am glad they exist. I got to check out the TV show. And
Mhm.
yeah, I hope they do more stuff with woodland creatures. If you like this kind of like vibe, there's a great board game actually called Root.
I've heard of it, but I haven't invested in it. But I want a good, cute board game.
It's a little like rules heavy, but it's very fun once you learn it of like for four people to play like woodland factions, kind of doing
Yeah.
light war in the woods is like it's great for that. It's very cute. It's a cute board, cute pieces, very red wall. Just play that instead.
Nice. Yeah, not required for me. This is I think episode 57 of the podcast, and this is the first book I have skimmed
Wow,
for them.
that's an honor, Aaron. That is a huge honor. That is amazing. With my book recommendations, I hope to make more people watch TV. That's my dream. Uh,
That's a beautiful legacy to have.
it could have been a sonnet.
He and his son should have just made like a big mural in
Wow, a
Liverpool.
mural. Walking by a mural, like I would genuinely go upwards of 15, but under 20 minutes out of my way to see a Redwall mural. I would.
Yes,
I would take a photo with it that I would not post, but it would be nice to have.
just for you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd eat a Lunchable snack pack in front of it, and that'd be great. And then I'd move about my day.
Yeah, it's a good book for an Uncrustable.
Hopefully, about half the pages get stuck together, and you just go up, you chalk it up to a loss, and you just keep
Oops.
moving. And you keep moving.
Yep, you will not miss anything. No. Is there anything
Well,
you'd like to plug as we round out?
catch me doing stand up. I'll be back in LA late December. And then Happy Gilmore 2 will be out sometime next year, hopefully. So check that out.
Congratulations, that's incredible.
Thanks. Yeah, check that out on Netflix. Yeah, we just finished shooting, so it'll be super fun. Tons of cool people in that. And yeah, give that subscribe to Netflix if you're the one person who hasn't already somehow.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's it for me.
Well, thank you so much. I'm gonna stop the recording.
Thank you so much for having me, Aaron.
Thank you so much, Carter. I'm going to try to get this under 30 seconds. You can support the podcast at buymeacoffee.com/required reading. You can follow me everywhere at Aaron R. Bowles. And next week we are talking Le Petit Prince, the Little Prince. I'll see you then.